Guys, this is Up, the movie, the stuff happening.
Stuff in the movies happening.
I think that's like a Toy Story intro, isn't it?
This is it.
You've got a friend in me.
I'm a grumpy man. I'm a hyperactive child. I'm a talking dog. Squirrel.
Wow. Nice.
Your next synopsis has got to be in song then, Nige.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. If we do a musical, Nige is doing the synopsis, regardless of what it is. He's doing it in song. We've made that. It's made a blood pact.
Yeah. Hello, you are listening to Off Radar, It's a Movie podcast. I'm James Smith, a professional film and video editor.
I'm James Eatock, a freelance writer and illustrator specialising in 1980s cartoons.
And I'm Neil Brock, aka Nige, the man with two names, former film journalist and currently working in the games industry.
Each week, one of us picks a movie that all three of us either haven't seen in many years or in some cases haven't seen at all.
We each watch the chosen movie, return to the microphone and let you all know exactly what we thought of it.
I'd never really had any interest in watching it and I was proved absolutely right.
I think it's amazing. I really, really love this film.
The film's still a pile of steaming dog shit.
If you fancy joining in and suggesting a movie for us to watch, why not tweet us at Off Radar Podcast
or email us on offradarpod@gmail.com.
If you like what you hear, please subscribe, share, and by all means, leave a review.
For now, strap in, turn the volume up, and let's go Off Radar.
All right.
All right. All right. Hello. All right. Welcome back to Off Radar. I'm James Smith and joined by James Eatock.
Hello.
As always, and Neil Brock.
Hello.
As always, who we call Nige.
My voice was slightly up there.
That's what he did. I knew I got what he was doing. I didn't want to. I thought, let him have that. Let him have it.
I just didn't get it, man.
He didn't. I don't get it. Very good. And today we are talking about a film called Up, which came out in 2009. Believe it or not.
Bloody hell.
It's a long time ago now.
Yeah, it feels so.
Yeah, this was one I recommended we watch for the podcast.
Was you?
Yeah,
this was a Smith.
Me. Yeah. Thought we hadn't done a Pixar animation or any sort of animation film for a little while, so thought it was due. First up, have we seen this film? Nige?
Yes, I had. I can't remember when I saw it. Not very long after it came out. Obviously, big fan of Pixar films. And yeah, I would say this was in the midst of probably their strongest run of releases. So around, like, obviously Toy Story 2 and WALL-E as well. So yeah, I thought, why don't I check out this little animated film? But I don't think I'd seen it since that first watch. Obviously watched it for this review now.
Fair enough. Oh wow, so you haven't seen it since? Okay.
No, I think I watched it once and yeah, just hadn't got round to watching it again since.
Very good. Eatock, seen this one?
Yeah, saw it at the cinema. I was like, my friend and I were doing the old weekly cinema visits and it was like, let's go and see a Pixar movie. It just come out and but like Nige, I had not seen it since I saw it. So I had not seen this since 2009 when it presumably came out at the cinema.
Wow.
And to be honest, I couldn't remember much about the movie aside from the kind of almost now legendary opening, like 10 minutes or so. It was just like, I can't remember anything about the film. I couldn't remember the plot. I remember like House and Balloons and the little kid Russell, but that was it. I couldn't remember who the antagonist was or anything. It was just like, oh, right, okay, should be an interesting one. So it was very pleasant. And like Nige said, this came out at a kind of the height of Pixar. I think this was maybe pre-Disney owning Pixar, or I think so. Or if not, it must have only just been a few years after they acquired them.
It's funny. I just had a quick look at like sort of the order of Pixar releases, and you had like Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, then Cars, which a lot of people like, but some people think it's a bit of a misfire. Then you had Ratatouille, WALL-E, Up, and Toy Story 3, which I would say is a fantastic run. And then it kind of went off the rails a bit, and you had Cars 2, Brave, Monsters University, Inside Out, The Good Dinosaur, Finding Dory, Cars 3, and you're thinking, God, like Inside Out. I think was, if I remember, Inside Out was that felt like a return to form for Pixar. Yeah, I think a lot of people think that way, but the rest around it's kind of they went from every film being like gold dust to suddenly like, a few sequels, few things that don't quite work. I think it's that thing like, I think we talked about this on the Wall-E one probably, but my thing with Pixar goes back nice Wall-E. My thing with Pixar goes back to like the late 80s. I remember it being, Pixar were doing these little animations like just thinking like, wow, what was it, Tin Toy, and was it Flick Flack, I think, or Tic Tac? I think it's Flick Flack. It was about the little snowman and the globe. And when they started making movies, they were obviously making movies because they were Pixar. Then when Disney got them, understandably, they brand everything. So don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Pixar weren't branding stuff before, but once Disney gets a hold of you, they're going to make sure that they get as much money from the brand as possible. Do you know what I mean? So it's not just like, we're doing a Pixar we're making a Pixar movie. It's like, what can we sell around this Pixar movie?
Yeah, absolutely.
I wasn't sure if either of you were listening to
I
it.
was, sorry. Yeah.
No, absolutely.
I was, yeah.
You were both looking at your screens.
I was just trying to see when Disney actually bought it. But
I was just about to do the same thing, and I was kind of looking at just, this idea. Well, I was looking at, obviously, the films that came out. I think Cars, for me, felt like almost the turning point when it became, let's do it for the merch. But realistically, it was probably there from the start. We just maybe didn't notice it quite as much. They didn't kind of ram it down your throat. I'd be amazed if every single Pixar film hasn't been a like McDonald's Happy Meal kind of thing.
Do you remember like the biggest toy of like the much kind? It was in the new. I didn't care for toys, but the Buzz Lightyear thing, that was before Disney. But I remember everyone wanted a Buzz Lightyear toy. They to the point where they made bloody Jingle All the Way was a Buzz Lightyear kind of thing, wasn't it? If I remember right. It
feels very exactly, because they don't obviously call it Buzz Lightyear and Jingle All the Way, but it's basically. I remember because Buzz Lightyear was after
that story when it came out, like everybody wanted a Buzz Lightyear. So I think that was the Christmas of '95, and people at the toy aisles, they were fighting, and I think whatever.
Right.
Yeah, and I think whatever was born out of the original script for Jingle All the Way, they were like, this is a perfect kind of foundation for the plot. Is like this dad needs to get this toy for his kid, and it is a really good idea for a film. Like, I know we're talking about Up here, but just in terms of Pixar inspiring very early on. But yeah, it's I think just Pixar, you see their name on things now, but it's got like a giant Disney logo before or after it, and it's just like, I
think it was always there for the Pixar films, though, because there's always been that very close relationship. Like, I've just gone back and looked at a bunch of posters, and there was always a Disney next to the Pixar. It didn't just suddenly appear, unless they've gone back and redone every single poster for all the old films, which I wouldn't put past.
Wouldn't be surprised for Disney, but I'm sure like the first Toy Story, maybe the second, was still under the Pixar logo.
Yeah. So apparently 2006 was when like the ultimately agreed
merger
to buy for 7.4 billion. So that was when a huge deal went through and Disney almost like took full ownership. But 2006 is kind of just before actually, like we said, like Wall-E and Up. So there's still like around this time, I guess the thing that seems to be missing from some of these films that come after Up is that heart of the story that you get in films like Toy Story and Wall-E and Up, and arguably even Monsters Inc. And it kind of lacks that, doesn't it? It just becomes. It's fine. It's just fine. Whereas all of these are like stories at the heart of what they do.
I think the problem is with Disney have always tried to make films with heart. I think they just have completely lost their way now. And I think the problem is with Pixar films now, they just feel like, it's another Disney film. That's the thing. Like, I think they even when you hear people talking about those movies, it's like Disney Pixar. It's like, oh right, okay, so that's what it is now. Whereas, when I was growing up, it was like, a Pixar movie. Like, Pixar are going into making movies. Oh my goodness. But and then at this point they made Up.
Up, indeed. I also saw this at the cinema, just going back slightly, around that time. I think at the time, me and a friend, Michael Morley, had a like one of those monthly memberships with a Cineworld.
I thought it was an Orange Wednesday or something.
Well, no, it's just like unlimited films for £15 a month. So we used to watch everything, and this was around that time, so like we didn't even look at what was on. We just like, oh, Up is on, let's go and see that. But anyway, yeah, so I saw that around then. I have seen it since. I remember buying it on Blu-ray when that came out, because I thought it was around that time when Blu-ray came out as well, around 2010-11, because I thought, oh, that's going to be a great film to watch on Blu-ray. So yeah,
have you ever watched it on Blu-ray though, or did you just buy it and put it on a shelf?
I did watch it, yeah, around that when it first came out, and obviously I've still got it, so I watched it again for this very viewing.
I think I've got maybe like, I don't know, 15, maybe 20 Blu-rays. I don't think I've ever actually watched any of them.
I've still got some in my cellophane. Yeah.
Oh man, I'd say I've genuinely watched all of mine, including Convoy on Blu-ray.
Oh, Convoy!
that was actually the first Blu-ray I got. Convoy. They're releasing Convoy on Blu-ray, and it was gorgeous. Anyway.
So there's a segue. But directed and written by Pete Docter and Bob Peterson. And you actually mentioned like quite a few of the films that they've worked together on. It's no surprise that they worked together on Toy Story 1 and 2, Monsters Inc., and WALL-E, which are all kind of, and Inside Out actually, which are all some of the better ones.
There you go, the best ones.
And then voiced by Edward Asner, who played
Ed Asner,
Carl.
I think usually he's referred to as Ed Asner.
Oh, is he? Ed
Especially
Asner.
to his friends, which Smith has just outed himself as not his friend.
I am not his friend. I recognised him as...
Ed.
Well, I didn't recognise him because it's his voice, but he's the Santa in Elf. That guy. And then the young boy, you said Russell, is played by Jordan Nagai, who's a little boy in this. Also, we have Christopher Plummer, who basically plays the kind of evil old dude, Charles Munst, the guy with the tash from the sort of old school video thing. And then another one, Doug, the dog, is actually Bob Peterson, the director and writer, his voice, or
I was trying to place. I didn't look up like the Wikipedia or anything like that, but I was just watching that. I was like, who is playing Doug? I feel like I know that voice. Turns out I didn't know that voice at all. It's just whoever it was. I mean, like you say, Bob Peterson, very very good at doing that job though. Really
I feel like when we did WALL-E, there was something a similar thing. I vaguely remember, anyway.
Yeah, he's done a few voices. He did like Roz in Monsters University. No idea who that is. Mr. Ray in Finding Dory. So he's done a few random Pixar voices, but nothing I would say you'd be like, oh, well, yeah, he's really well known for that.
Big Bob.
Big old Bob.
And I've done a little synopsis for this bad boy.
Synopsis Smith.
Here we go. Carl Fredrickson has lived a relatively happy life with his childhood sweetheart Ellie. When Ellie sadly dies, Carl is lost, lonely, and at risk of losing their home, which holds precious pastimes and memories which he can't let go of. Carl and Ellie's long life dream was to travel to South America and settle at the forbidden Paradise Falls. His only way out is to tie bright balloons to the house and float his way there. He soon realises that a young stowaway, Russell, is on board. The journey begins.
Oh, nice, Smith. I like the use of stowaway as well. That's good.
Good afternoon. Are you in need of any assistance today, sir?
No.
I could help you cross the street.
No.
I could help you cross your yard.
No.
I could help you cross your... Ow.
All his life, Carl Fredrickson dreamed of adventure. Today, his adventure is finally taking off.
So long, boys! Huh? Ah!
Please let me in.
No.
I was going to say, the opening of this movie, I love the fact that it opens with the old film movie, was it like a movie tone news thing where they used to, because I think if you were like a kid, like if you was to show this to a kid now, they'd be like, why are they watching the news in the cinema, and it's like, because that's how people used to watch the news, because people didn't have tellies in the
they had
90s.
like passes like Smith. They would just go watch anything at the cinema.
There you go. Yeah, they had the old Cineworld thing.
I'm going to watch the news. Yeah,
I do wonder, like, how much it was to go to the cinema. I mean, those movie tone things were shown usually, obviously, before a feature or like a Flash Gordon or something in the 1920s and 30s. I just wonder, like, did people go just to watch the news? Anyway, that's not the point of this. But yeah, we see.
I think they were on before the films.
Oh, they were on
I was
before
going to
the
say,
film.
because you probably get it all on the radio, don't you? So.
Yeah, but it's nice when like a
for
lot
the
of
news. Would you go to the
when the oh my goodness, when the Hindenburg went down, that was famously the old.
I guess if you get big events, maybe, but it's not exactly a big event.
Imagine on the radio, and oh my god, the Hindenburg, it's caught fire, and you're sitting there going like, I want to see what this looks like. What happened when it all went up in flames?
Yes, true.
Oh, I've got to go and watch a rerun at the cinema. But obviously it opens up with we see Charles Muntz, the explorer, and I oddly watching this, I kept looking at his features and I kept thinking he kind of looks like Bruce Campbell, because Bruce Campbell does look almost like a cartoon character with his big kind of expressive eyes and cheekbones and jaw,
chiseled chin,
chiseled jaw. And I was just watching this thinking, it kind of looks like Bruce Campbell. So I kept thinking, he's not the voice, but I don't think he's going to be the voice, because I couldn't remember who voiced I forgot it was Plummer. But obviously we get little Carl, watching as a child, watching the news, all excited with his little goggles, and he has a thirst for adventure, inspired by Charles Muntz. And it's like, oh, okay, you're setting the stage very early on.
Well, no, but then his adventures, or his hopes for adventures, expand, because he meets someone else who wants to be an explorer, a very chatty, lovely girl who becomes, is Ellie, essentially. So, and it's quite interesting, their dynamic when they're both young, that he barely says a word and she's like a million miles an hour kind of
that is interesting, because obviously
rapid fire.
When we get I've only just thought this is maybe what you were about to say, sorry.
No, you go ahead, Smith.
That obviously the little boy later is very million miles away. He's like, he kind of like a parallel to what she is a bit later. Yeah, no, it's a good point.
Exactly,
Sorry,
kind of fills that void in his life, because obviously, we kind of see them grow old, and there's a lovely montage.
You think trying to write this is right? We've got to hit key moments in their life. We've got to show how their journey, growing old together, changes, but also how during that thing, how their adventure, their desire for adventure, life kind of gets in the way. That we see this kind of repeating gag, as it were, of them saving up with this big jar of money. We're saving up for our trip to South America to go to the falls, and then, they're driving and a tyre bursts. So they have to break the jar and use the money to get a new tyre. And then something else happens, I think. But I think one of the most amazing... I remember in the cinema, you could hear a pin drop throughout, like this moment, where they're painting the nursery. It's like, they're planning for a family. And the camera beautifully, like pans across, and now we're in a hospital. And it's Ellie, and she's sort of like... just sitting on a chair, kind of
sobbing,
distraught. Yeah. And it's like, oh wow! So either they lost the child, or she wasn't able to conceive. And you got to think, if they're doing the nursery, then they probably they lost the child.
Yeah.
And it's so heartbreaking, because it's like, again, it's all done. No voiceover, just the use of music. I mean, throughout this film, it's incredible. But in this,
amazing.
Oh my God, it's like, it serves as the narration. It's like, you've got that kind of, you've got the key theme from Up, which I think is one of those movie scores that I always seem to remember. I hadn't seen this.
You just kind of know it when it's on, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's those bars, and it's like, and it plays into this, but they do like any good movie score. There's like the sad version, there's the happy version, and it all plays into this, and you see them, and it's like they're growing old together, and there's like loads of kind of mirroring images where now we're going up the hill and Ellie falls, they're elderly now, and
when he was young, he struggled to get the hill, she was full of beans, and then suddenly it kind of flips.
Well, I love how this montage has got so much colour in it as well. Like, you know, like, which obviously when we find out what's happened to her a little bit later, the colour shifts dramatically. But in this, in this part, you know, even when they're making the home, the home is a key part of this film, obviously.
Yes.
But when in this montage, you see them obviously buy the home, and you know, like, it's a wreck, so they do it up, and the colour kind of gets spread.
It's all like crazy colours.
And, you know, she is so much of him that the home is basically part of his heart, and that's, you know, part of the journey that then happens.
Well, there's you know, as the movie continues, there's a reason he is so much reminded of her looking at that house, because that house it's full of their memories, but it's so much her as well. Her inspiration is what drove their kind of desire for adventure and everything. That heartbreaking bit where you see him, he buys 2 tickets to go to South America, and then he's going to give them to her at the top of a hill at a picnic. She's climbing up the hill and like she falls, and then the next thing, she's in hospital, like growing old, and she hands him the book, the kind of memory adventure book kind of thing that she's got. It just, you know, it passes away and it fades to black. I remember just in the cinema, all you could hear was like people just like, I think me and my friend were just like, oh my God, how do you like create a montage so powerful? and I said, like,
without a word, it brings people to tears, and I feel like it brings almost anyone that's watched this to tears. And even some of the people working in the production side, when they saw this as a storyboard, it brought them to tears. That's how powerful
even
it was.
At that stage.
So,
but it's like, you know, Pixar were famous they still are to a degree, but especially in the 80s and 90s, early 90s, for making short films. And it's like, this is, oh my God, if this had been a short film, I think this would have won all the awards.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If it had just been a film, like, obviously it wouldn't have been called Up, but just a film about a couple... a couple going on this life adventure. And
I would say, like, I don't want to give away my review for this, but if we were just reviewing this, it would be a 10. Like, just that montage.
That was literally.
It's one of the greatest. Sort of, I don't know, however long it is, 5 minutes, 4 minutes in cinema history, which seems absolutely insane. It is. Animated film from like the late noughties, and it's like, how have they done this?
It's that thing as well. It's so brave to do that in this sort of film as well. I mean, we talked about grief a little bit on the Lovely Bones podcast, and it is, like, I think he made a point, it's a subject that is rarely, you know, like, kind of tackled in film, but let alone a film that is also targeted at, you know, younger people, kids,
a younger audience.
It's obviously an adult film, but it's also, or probably more majority, you know, it's both. So to tackle 2 big issues in that first 10 minutes, like you said, either a miscarriage or they couldn't have a kid, a very real life thing that is actually often in kids' films. It's just like, oh, they have kids, they get married, they live happily ever after.
Here comes the stalk.
But actually, like you said, life, it's true. Life does get in the way, and life is complicated. And I think that's one of the things about this whole film, isn't it? How complicated life is. But it's something that, because it's so powerful, is because every person can identify with this, because we all know someone that's obviously died. So, and we will.
It's not just that. I think we all, you know, we all have those kind of, oh, this is how I think my life's going to go. And I think you can look at it, like, anyone can watch this and see themselves in it, or elements of their life. And it's kind of like that opening montage is just so powerful. And I remember, when you said about we're doing Up, you know, like I said, the only thing I kept thinking of is like, well, the only thing I can remember about that film is this. And like Nige said, and it's, I kind of said it in my review, if we were just doing this, easily a 10. It's one of the most powerful sequences.
But much like real life, you can solve things with thousands of balloons. So that's all you need.
I'm amazed how this film gets this so right, where we go from such a powerful opening scene to like
back into I know.
Establishing who he is as an adult, establishing
so well done.
The batteries not included style. They're demolishing the neighbourhood and they're leaving one thing behind.
But when he gets out of bed, he's like, oh yeah, kind of getting out of bed.
It's that reality, isn't it? And like I said, when we come out of this like fluffy montage, actually life is is not that great now, there's the saturation suddenly shifts, and there's a building site around his house, and
that reveal is amazing because he comes out of his building, you camera pans back,
and then it's
just a construction
site, and you've got like the guy with the suit with black glasses on and no face. It's like,
it's like something out of the Matrix. It's like Mr. Smith.
It kind of is, isn't it? But and the way they kind of talk to him and treat him, but he's stubborn and old. He's a bit Victor Meldrew-ish now.
Great, yeah.
But like in that kind of charming way, and all of a sudden, you totally root for this guy right from the off.
Well, I think because we see him as a kid, and we see that, like in that, again, going back to the montage, we see that journey he goes through. So it's a really incredible piece of character building, because if you just open the film with the old man and maybe hear a little bit of his backstory, you're kind of like, oh, he's a like cliched grumpy old man. But because we've seen him as a child, that zest, that wonderment of adventure, to seeing his life play out before our eyes, like the ups and the downs, to where he is now, like a lonely old man living in his house that he loves so much, surrounded by construction. Everybody, the construction people want to tear his house down. You do, like you say, Smith, you do root for him because it's kind of impossible not to.
Well, I like the way they kind of have him getting ready for his day ahead, like getting dressed, all that kind of stuff. He goes outside and just sits in his old man chair out on the porch, just shout at kids and all that classic like American thing. Obviously, the only people to shout out, as you said, the developers and the construction workers who are changing his neighbourhood into a high-rise type officey business, Canary Wharf style in the UK.
And obviously, like very near to this point, we meet Russell, who is the little boy that I mentioned, who
like a Boy Scout.
He is a Boy Scout, comes knocking, and he's
who the dogs all call Little Mailman. The Little Mailman.
Little Mailman.
That's such a great gag.
He's innocent and charming, but really quick talking, but quite annoying, especially to Carl. But like you said really well, which I didn't really clock. It is kind of like a parallel and a representative of what Ellie was like, especially when she was a kid and he was quite quiet. So that kind of like literal parallel for him to kind of almost deal with the grief and stuff, because we know what this film is going to be about. I think that it is about him kind of getting over his grief, coming to terms with it, but then also the adventure part of it, which we obviously get next.
Well, it's such a beautiful scene.
Good morning, Mr. Fredrickson. You ready to go?
Ready as I'll ever be. Would you do me a favor and take this? I'll meet you at the van in just a minute. I want to say one last goodbye to the old place.
Sure. Take all the time you need, sir.
That's typical. He's probably going to the bathroom for the 80th time.
You'd think he'd take better care of his house.
Lo and behold, there's this amazing sequence where all the balloons sort of come up from the house and out the windows and everything else, and suddenly this house lifts up off the ground and starts drifting through the city, and you've got people kind of looking out there, again, big high rises are there, people on the street looking up in wonderment, and just the beautiful colours of these balloons. And again, you kind of mentioned right at the start the colours of this film.
Such an attention to detail.
The contrast, as especially against that kind of industrial background as well, where the balloons pop out. Exactly. But
it's an amazing idea where when they were obviously putting this film together, it's like, think about it. If you were to say, and then the balloons come up from the house, I'd say most of us would just go, okay, there's the visual. The balloons come up from the house and people look up. The idea that the light comes through them and creates this wonderful rainbow, colour scheme across everybody. Like, there's the little girl, I think she's in one of the buildings, and as the balloons go past, like all her all her room lights up, or like the apartment she's in all lights up, all these majestic colours, and it's like such a lovely idea for a visual. It's like the balloons aren't just kind of carrying this house, they're kind of casting colour against all of the the gloominess of the city, as it were. It's really, really beautiful.
There's one shot, I think, of the house literally in like a blue sky, and I think it might even be the poster or cover, which is literally the house, blue sky, quite simplistic really, but it's such a brilliant shot. I remember seeing that for the first time in the cinema and being kind of like, wow, this is incredible, because obviously
it's amazing that it's amazing that it's 21 minutes into the movie the house rises that soon.
It is, actually,
because watching it I was like, man, I forgot it was like it's this early, we're already on the adventure. That's crazy. Like 20 minutes into the film we're already undertaking this adventure, and then obviously the comical twist where
Hi, Mr. Fredrickson. It's me, Russell.
What are you doing out here, kid?
I found the snipe and I followed it under your porch. But this snipe had a long tail and looked more like a large mouse.
If we're really talking about the science, apparently someone's done the math. And if Carl's house was approximately 1,600 square feet, and the average house weighs between 60 and 100 pounds per square foot, it would weigh about 120,000 pounds. So you would need roughly 12.5 million balloons to lift this house off the ground. And if it takes like a skilled balloon worker 9 seconds to fill and tie off a helium balloon, it would have taken Carl roughly 3.5 years to blow up all those balloons, assuming he never stopped to eat or rest. Man. There's some...
there you go, Up. You're a shit movie because your science is right. Yeah, you're wrong.
And that's the kind of trivia that nobody likes, because
exactly,
he could have done it with one balloon if he wanted to.
But the talking big dog things will work, so fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine.
Do you fancy sending us a film to review, or letting us know your thoughts on a film that we have discussed? All of your comments will be read out in our end of season leaderboard episode. Email us on offradarpod@gmail.com. Tweet us at offradarpodcast. Message us on Facebook. All links and info in the description down below.
Do it! Do it!
You obviously bringing him in, and that there's a moment where he's obviously annoying the hell out of him, and he has been for all the film. And there's a cutaway which is like almost like Family Guy-ish, where
the cutaway.
He thinks, I'm going to get rid of him, and he like lowers him down, like as if he's lowering down,
trying to drop him onto one of the buildings.
But the rope snaps, and I was like, oh god! But then he like breaks out of the kind of.
He goes, oh, that never work.
I thought that was brilliant, because it kind of like breaks that reality of like what we're really in. I say reality loosely, but yeah.
Well, and it's also a little callback to what he does eventually at the end as well.
Yes,
so it's kind of like an advance, like, here's a thought I've had. I wonder if this will come in useful later. But yeah, it's a nice scene, and like obviously the relationship, like when Russell first knocks on his door when he's actually on the ground, he's a Boy Scout, a do-gooder, he wants to like help an old person because that's what Boy Scouts do. So hence why he's come back again, and hence why he gets taken off on this adventure. And again, I think he might be like an adventure scout or just whatever, but obviously scouts are kind of well known for exactly. He's always trying to get his badges, I should say. And so you think, oh well, if they're going on an adventure, at least this is a practical kid that knows all the things from scouting. But it comes very apparent quite early on, and obviously when they do eventually get somewhere, that he's not really the best person to be out in the wilderness. Like his ability to even put up a tent is somewhat questionable and things like that. So, but yeah, it gives that dynamic where if it had just been an old guy floating away in a house, it would have been quite a somber movie. But suddenly you've got this spark wire just going crazy for quite a lot of it.
Yeah, it's true. And then obviously, once we land, we bring in other characters to kind of enhance that even further, and like to other degrees, because I think they meet the bird.
They meet Kevin first. Kevin the snipe. Yeah.
But the bird thing's great because it's so colourful and bright and annoying again. But I
love the design where it's
laugh. Like
well, it's got those eyes that have no personality. It's almost like it's just like it sounds horrible. It sounds like it looks just dumb and silly, like, and it just makes the thing. But obviously we learn very quickly that it's a mother, and it's got its children, in the slightly far away, and it's like, oh right, she's calling back out to her children, which makes it even funny that I believe it's a she's called Kevin.
But there's the sort of the bad guy in this film has essentially been hunting this bird for years, because he took, I think, the skeleton of one back in the day. They used to be all the explorers, and they'd always go back to their big stuffy cloaks.
Look what I found.
Yeah,
But before that, we meet his allies,
Doug.
which I think are like, well, we meet Doug, but we meet like three other dogs at first.
One of them voiced by Delroy Lindo, although only at points when his voice box isn't malfunctioning.
Oh, that's Delroy Lindo. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
Delroy Lindo from Gone in 60 Seconds. I remember him from, amongst other
He's been in
things.
loads of stuff. Did he?
But he's great.
Yeah,
sure
Delroy
it's-
Lindo
yeah.
is just one of those sort of actors that when he shows up in something, you're just like, yes.
Yeah, it's Delroy. Yeah, no, he's a great actor. But yeah, in the dogs, like, it's such a. I remember when they first showed up. I remember like I say, the few things of this film I could remember all these years later were, oh yeah, the talking dog. I remember thinking to myself, oh, this is going to get annoying very quickly.
Yeah.
Like, and then the three dogs show up. And they're given such funny personalities. Like, their designs are good, but their voices. And the lead dog, who's the alpha, obviously.
The Doberman.
The Doberman, when it starts speaking, we sit and it speaks. The dialogue that they gave the Doberman is hilarious because it's also overly dramatic. Like, it's delivering truly villainous dialogue. Almost like something out of, like, I don't know, like a comic book like Doctor Doom or something, delivering these really dramatic lines, but with the voice modulator or the voice box that these dogs have, it's malfunctioning, so it sounds like a little chipmunk. And the other gag we keep getting, which is really good, which is you get it whenever the dogs are on screen, is they'll be talking and they'll just go squirrel, and they just look. They all stop, but it's the way it's done. It's like da 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 squirrel. And they all look, and then they just go back to talking.
This is the bird's favorite hole. Under no circumstances are you permitted to, squirrel, ever leave this hole.
But I love the other thing about the way the dogs are written. It's not standard dialogue. It's the writers have cleverly gone, you know. And it's obvious as well, but it's like, what would dogs be thinking? We all know dogs are like very kind of the moment, hence squirrel, that kind of thing. So when they're delivering their dialogue, it is like what you would picture when you look at a dog, what you could picture a dog thinking. Like, I really like you. What are we doing? What's that over there? Who are you? You know, that kind of thing. So when the dogs are delivering their dialogue, it's all kind of... It's always comical. That's the thing. It's really good. It's really, really funny.
Well, one of the lines that made me really chuckle apparently came from like Bob Peterson's experience as being like a camp counsellor, like years before, like back in the 80s, where he met a small child who just came up to him and was just like, I have just met you and I love you. And he kind of like that kind of thing. Just it really makes it brilliant. Like in terms of that, you immediately get affinity for the dogs kind of thing. Just off, like you say, the clever lines, the clever script for them.
Going back to what you're saying, Nige, like the crazy thing when they meet Charles Muntz is that, you know, obviously Muntz was the one that inspired Carl to be an adventurer.
It's like his hero.
And Ellie.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, wow. And so you meet them first.
Twist, really.
It's like you think to yourself, okay, yeah, you know, there's something
he looks
behind
sinister.
the eyes with regards to Muntz, because like it's although Nige referred to him as Charles Schultz, who I believe created the Peanuts and Snoopy strip.
Sorry, Charles Muntz, not Charles Schultz. Oops.
Charles Schultz.
Snoopy's like, no, I'm not one of the dogs.
yeah. Oh,
Squirrel.
nice.
Yeah,
that's reference. But yeah, he turns up, and at first you're like, oh yeah, okay, mate, he's charming and stuff, and he's got his you see all this army of dogs, and when Charles says no, they're friends, all the dogs, you hear all them talking, I like you now, you're my friend, where are we go, you know, that kind of thing. And they go inside this his airship that he used to travel to South America back in the 20s kind of stuff.
All his adventures,
and you see all his trophies, as it were, and it turns out he's trying to get Kevin the snipe. There's like a nice moment for Carl's character, because he sees that, oh wow, Charles wants to hunt this creature that we care for, you know.
I think there's even another reveal as well where you feel like he might have killed travellers that have been,
he definitely does.
The skeletons, right? And you're like,
that's
as soon as he becomes suspicious of him, of what they're there for, because obviously they give him this story about, oh yeah, we've just come here because we wanted to visit the house, all that kind of stuff. He's like, yeah, fine, whatever. And then it's just like, wait a minute, all these people came along before with stories, and they're all just trying to get my Kevin. Kind of, obviously he doesn't call it Kevin, he just knows it as the bird.
The thing is, they don't show skulls. They just show, they're like mannequin heads, but with goggles on, like explorer goggles, each one
with a skull,
and he knocks them off. Yeah,
but the lighting's brilliant in this as well, because it's all like dramatic and kind of like almost like a kind of orangey kind of color when it looks at him. But it's menacing, a big close up of him. And
Smith loves his colours this episode.
He's all about the colours. I think he is very colourful in many.
It's because you own the Blu-ray. That's what it is.
Probably. I saw all the colours. But yeah,
I watched it in black and white.
Shadows as well in this scene are brilliant as well.
Oh, so good.
Like they're kind of coming off his kind of, like almost like cartoonish, evil, like kind of sinister shadow in the background. But yeah, like it's really well done. But then the escape is equally as brilliant.
What I loved about this was and I think this movie it does it really well, is you have to make action scenes with two people walking around or even just like floating around in a house, and they managed to make these action scenes like really kind of inventive. And it's like they're trying to escape the cave, because that's where Charles Muntz keeps his airship, and they're like running down the rocks, and Doug's helping them. And there's one bit, I don't know if Nige caught it, because I know he loves his kind of little Easter eggs and stuff, but when like the dogs all hit this ledge, and like our heroes manage to escape, and the dogs start falling off into like this river below, and you hear a Wilhelm scream.
Of course.
Yeah. I was like, oh, Wilhelm scream.
Yeah,
that was amazing. I was just like, I burst out laughing when I heard that scream. I was like, oh, of course it's in this movie. So they take Kevin the Snipe, because it's like, that's where Carl has to make that decision, doesn't he? He's like, do I continue on to journey and get to the falls?
He has a massive decision now, right? And
or
because most of this film has been almost about him getting that house to the cliff edge, or what, Paradise Falls. So the fact that he's now got this moral decision is like, now do we go and save Kevin the bird? And
I think at that stage as well, sorry, just quickly, like Etok, you said like, it turns out Kevin's a mother with children. I don't think we find that out till later in the film. So even at this stage, they're still just like, right, yeah, just because it's a bird that's like nice and been friendly to us, and it's like a giant bird, like he's not thinking, like you said, it's his hero. He could have like been his hero's best friend and say, oh yeah, we can get the bird for you, kind of thing. But immediately he knows how much the bird means to the young kid who he's only just met, kind of thing. He has no real connection with him. And you can tell like he is a good-hearted, despite his like gruff exterior and his grumpiness, he's a good-hearted person. And we obviously saw elements of that with his relationship with Ellie. And yeah, he's got a massive choice to make, because the house and everything, this whole journey means so much to him. And suddenly there's other things that he needs to consider.
And then I think, which is another, a real lovely callback and a beautiful moment in the movie, and I'm sure you'll both agree, is when he's, by himself now. He's got the house. Carl has got the house. He's left, Russell to go off this adventure. Carl has got the house to the falls.
Paradise Falls, isn't it?
Paradise Falls, yeah. And actually, Russell hasn't left at this point, so he's still kind of, but he's despondent. And Carl's like, okay. So Carl goes in the house, tidies up, and he finds the adventure book that Ellie, was working on. And he goes through it. He sees the memories, and he gets to the page which is, stuff I'm going to do. And you're like, okay. And it's clearly obvious that there's more pages beyond that have been filled up. And he's like, oh, he kind of turns the page.
Yeah, thinking they were always empty.
Yes, thinking they were always empty. And it's so beautiful, that moment where he realizes they lived the adventure. They had this life together. And it was just memories. And it's such a wonderful, moral, whatever you want to call it, where it's like, you could have had this journey and all these crazy adventures and done this, but life in itself is an adventure. The person you're with, you share that adventure, and it's so kind of powerful. And at the end,
not the destination, it's the journey type thing. And
exactly.
And obviously this is basically what this film, even this part of the adventure is that as well. Meeting.
But I love the fact that she's written on the last page. She's writes, thanks for the adventure. Now go have a new one. And it's like, and you go back and you're like, that's why she handed him the book in the hospital. When she was, about to pass away, she hands him the book, and he just thinks like, okay, I need to complete our journey. What she was doing is like, we've had this adventure.
go do whatever you need to do.
Move on,
And initially he didn't. Yeah.
And hasn't.
He didn't.
Until most until
he, he went up.
He went up.
He went
moved
that way. Which way are you going to go? That way. Up.
But yeah, I mean, some of these ridiculous but brilliant scenes, like action scenes you said about some of the other action scenes. So yeah, we get the blimp thing and the house, and it's kind of like parallel, and like you said, Nige, the boy like flying from a bit of string,
dangling rope. You get the dogs flying planes, which is an amazing scene. And what I loved about this as well is, like, a lot of people obviously big Star Wars fans, where you got like gold leader, red leader.
Yes.
Dogs can't see colours. So they're all like grey 1, grey 2, grey 3.
I didn't
it's
realise
such a clever, like, nice little joke. It's just like, yes. So yeah, grey leader, grey 1. It's like, yep. Good old dogs.
One of the things I just want to mention that made me laugh in, like, a scene going back a bit when they, I think, they're talking to Doug. They put him in the cone of shame, which is brilliant. It's just like a really lovely scene. But yeah, it's the action scenes. Like, it's the dogs in the biplanes, and it's just
those planes also make like the sounds from Star Wars. It's not just the name. So when they fire, it's the sound of like the X-wings. And when Russell first starts attacking them, they fly off in exactly the same way as they do when Han Solo comes in A New Hope. So like there's a big Star Wars lean in there. So yeah, it's literally a dogfight.
There we go. Yeah,
but you'd think that it could feel. I mean, maybe we'll get to this in our reviews, but it could feel like over the top, like all this stuff, but. Yeah, to me, it sits perfectly in this film. I mean, like the dog thing could probably get too annoying and too silly, but actually, because it's so grounded in the story of his adventure and his journey, I think there's that right balance between it. But the fact that at the end he obviously gets Kevin back to the babies, and then we see the little boy get his badge and all of that. It's kind of like it shows how selfless that he actually is, and that like all of this journey has actually been such a big part of the growth that Ellie and himself had to go through to get to that point. So when you get that beautiful end shot, which I totally forgot about, I thought, it kind of just wraps up and buttons up, and of the house falling onto the Paradise Fall. It's literally the last shot of the film, I think. It's a really nice kind of payoff that maybe. I don't know, maybe we didn't need, because that wasn't necessarily what it was about, because we see the house drift off, I should say, before that. But the fact it gets back there and he doesn't know that, but it's a nice touch anyway.
It finishes up where it needs to, where it belongs. And you're right in like the sense, like he moves on, and one of the like nicest bits of that is the badge that he got from Ellie when he was younger, the bottle cap that he gives to Kevin. It's like he's been trying to collect all these official scouting badges for so long, and this is the badge certainly that means the most to Carl, whether or not it does to Kevin, not Kevin, sorry, to Russell, but it's just a nice little moment. And again, like Russell, something we don't really mention is the fact that like Russell's got like his parents have got divorced, and this is quite a rare thing, or separated, or whatever it is. In like Disney Pixar films, normally the only time it's a single parent is because the other parent has died. So for them to have actually sort of decided, you know what, he just comes from like essentially a broken home, doesn't really have a father figure per se. And then at the end, when he's getting the badges, like Carl kind of steps in and is almost that father figure to be there and to kind of be an adult representative of Kevin. I keep saying Kevin, of Russell's life.
They've all got quite, it's the names, isn't it? Doug, Kevin, like they're quite like
Doug, Kevin, Russell,
like
Carl,
weird, like strange human names. For dogs and birds.
But the that scene where he gets the grape soda badge is so sweet, and like you see the mother in the audience, as it were. And what I like about that as well is they're getting their badges. It's not some big typical Disney-esque big ceremony where it's like it's just
like Star Wars again.
Star Wars, but it's a really quiet little almost like town hall with a few with some chairs in that some people are there for. It's not like packed out, and it's really nice. It's like this is the real world we're dealing with, even though we've got a floating house. But to cap it off, like you say, it's such a beautiful end to see that kind of final shot of the house. It's like their dream of getting their Carl and Ellie's dream, they kind of did it. And I mean, throughout the movie, we didn't really talk about them a lot, but Carl really, misses Ellie, and the house is such a important part of his connection to the memories of Ellie. And when he decides to, save Russell and Kevin, he basically, and it's quite it's not so subtle. It's pretty obvious, but he basically relinquishes all of his possessions. He just throws out everything that ever meant anything to him, except for the odd item here and there, and just throws it on the ground. There's a beautiful shot where there's all this all of his couch and sofa and tables and wardrobes, whatever, and then the camera just shifts across, and you see that he's placed the chairs that he and Ellie sat in perfectly next to the house. Perfectly down on Paradise Falls. But yeah, like you say, Smith, the house eventually, resides there, and it's just it's a perfect end to a movie. It's they lived their dream. Ellie may have passed away, but she's there in spirit, and it's I think it's a really beautiful. It's
amazing how much kind of is in this for an hour and a half. You would think that for a 2 hour, say, or even 2.5 hour film, that you could probably get through that, but it really does. For an hour and a half, it takes you on a proper journey, literally.
Yeah, it packs in a lot.
But to see all of that in that space of time is testament to how tightly it's written. But it never feels rushed, though. I never feel like I've not got to know anyone. I feel like I've got to know all the characters. I feel like part of that journey is sometimes slows down when they're in that part where they're walking through. And meeting.
The jungle kind of part.
That kind of Jungle Book adventure style bit. But really tight. Did you know you can now subscribe to Off Radar? It's a movie podcast on YouTube. You can watch exclusive trailers and listen to brand new full episodes. All links and info in the description down below.
Somebody stop me!
There's a ton of trivia for this, so I've tried to condense it as best as I can. But yeah, some of the Pixar's very good at kind of referencing other Pixar films. Normally, it's sort of the film that's in production is something that kind of plays into the one that they release. So I think there's ones where the pink bear from Toy Story 3 is kind of appears and things like that. But one of the things that a lot of people didn't sort of clock is when Carl and Ellie go picnicking, as we mentioned as part of the montage, their destination spot is actually under the same tree from A Bug's Life.
Wow.
So I thought that was really cool.
Nice,
and not something I clocked at all. So that was really nice. And then something else that they've done is kind of reference a bit of Walt Disney's history, I suppose, in the sense the villain, obviously Charles Muntz, has a very similar name to Charles Mintz, Mintz. So whether or not I pronounce that quite right. So he was essentially the Universal Pictures executive who in 1928 stole Walt Disney's production rights to the highly successful Oswald the Lucky Rabbit cartoon series. And because of this, Walt Disney went on to create Mickey Mouse instead, who soon eclipsed Oswald in popularity. So obviously this child Mintz has kind of got a dodgy reputation in Walt Disney World, so they kind of almost paid homage to him in that sense.
Yeah, bizarre.
Something we mentioned in one of the recent podcasts is about how so frequently someone goes to an audition and then their best friend or their older brother or whatever gets the part. That's what actually happened to Jordan Nage, who voiced Russell. Originally his older brother Hunter was auditioning for the part, and Nage just came along with him. There was 400 people there for the auditions, but he stood out because he would not stop talking. And they realised he had the same personality and mannerisms that they envisaged for Russell. And they said, as soon as his voice came on, we started smiling because he's appealing, he's innocent, he's cute, and different from what they were initially thinking. But they thought it just really suited the part. So, and it was obviously his first role as well in any film.
Well, he does it really well considering wasn't an actor at the time.
Yeah,
definitely. This was the third Disney film, third Disney film to be nominated for Best Picture Oscar.
Wow.
Can you name? No, sorry, this was the second of only three, I should say. Can you name the other two?
Disney Pixar, did you say? Or just Disney?
Just Disney film. So Disney animation, I suppose, is probably the best way of putting it.
I would say WALL-E and Toy Story 3.
So Toy Story 3 is one, yes, but not a Pixar film. A Disney film was the first one. So a classic Disney animation.
Mary Poppins.
It's not an animation, you fool.
There's animation in Mary Poppins.
Yeah, I
so you want
suppose.
animation.
All right.
Okay. Right. Okay. There's Fantasia.
Lion King.
No, I thought you guys would get this straight away. It was Beauty and the Beast. Was the first ever one.
Yeah, of course. That was the first Beauty and the Beast.
The first and only film at the time to be nominated for Best Picture.
Wow.
Because obviously, they brought in the Best Animated Picture, which this actually won. It also won Best Original Score and then got nominated for 3 others: Best Picture, Best Original Screenplay, and Best Sound Editing as well. So there you go. And something else, like we kind of mentioned the colours, but one thing we haven't mentioned is, because it's not something that very, very often comes up when we're describing films, is the shapes of the characters.
True.
Now, all the characters are based on circles and rectangles, except the villains, who are triangles. And you can see this both in terms of their appearance, but also the objects around them being based on their shapes. So the photos, for instance, of Carl and Ellie, circular and a square, the frame. So it's really interesting that they kind of lent so heavily into this. And obviously the angular bad guys. So,
very.
And speaking of like angles and things like that, there's the perfectly straight line of which the Doug's points with his entire tail, back and head. And that apparently is an homage to the identical pose that Pluto often makes.
Yeah, that's what Pluto used to do. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I thought you'd be all over that.
I was trying to. I couldn't remember. I was like watching that, thinking, where have I seen that before? And of course, it's Pluto. Yeah, he used to do that. And
then back to the awards again. So as I mentioned, the musical score became the 10th musical score and the 3rd from an animated film to win the Grammy, Golden Globe, and Academy Award.
Wow!
So a quick guessing game. We've mentioned one of them being Star Wars,
Lion King,
A New Hope. No, because this is of all films ever to win the best 3. It doesn't have to be an animated film; it could be any film. Star Wars, A New Hope was one. Beauty and the Beast was another. Can you name any more that have such a great score that they would have had a clean sweep of Grammy, Golden Globe, and Best Original Score?
Okay.
Jurassic Park.
Yeah, I was going to say a Spielberg one, but
yeah, there's a couple.
I was thinking one of the indie ones.
E.T.
E.T. is in there.
E.T.
Indiana Jones is not.
Okay.
Jaws. Jaws is in there, yes.
Of course.
Another Disney one that came out just after Beauty and the Beast.
Lion King. No, sorry.
Aladdin.
Aladdin. Yes, Aladdin was.
Is that it?
I don't know, you're going to get the rest. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid was the first. Out of Africa in 1985.
Wow.
The English Patient in 1996.
Oh, wow.
An often kind of forgotten Oscar winner, I think.
it is,
And then The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, because obviously when the final year they just threw every award they could at it. So yes.
To make it stop making films.
Please, no more. But we love you, Peter Jackson, apart from we don't love The Hobbit very much. Anyway, and I didn't like Lovely Bones, but that's another story. Then last bit of trivia is a sad story, really, but also a nice... I don't know, it depends on your perspective. But before the film's worldwide release date, they granted a wish from a 10-year-old, Colby Curtin, to see the film before she died. She'd been diagnosed with cancer and was too sick to go and see it at the movies. So an employee from Pixar flew to her house with the DVD of the finished film and screened it for her and her family. And then she died 7 hours later, shortly after watching the film. But they granted her wish. So,
how sweet!
Sweet. And
sad.
sad,
but like in keeping with this movie, a lot of heart in that gesture.
Definitely.
Wow,
very nice.
And that is Nige's trivia.
Excellent.
Nice trivia.
Good trivia, Nige, as always.
Nige's trivia.
So, what do we think of this film?
It's done.
What are our ratings out of 10? Anyone want to kick this one off?
How about you, Smith?
Okay.
Yeah, Smith.
You recommended
it. Come on.
Yeah, put your money where
Read out your review that Smith sent to Smith saying review this film.
Smith, this kind of meta universe.
Man.
Yeah, obviously I recommended we watch this. I don't think any of us have really criticised much of it when we were talking about this film.
Not at all.
Unless there's going to be a huge Nige twist.
Huge Nige.
Nige! Outrageous.
You just said your name.
You said a huge Nige twist. You didn't just say a huge twist. You added Nige to it, which... Yeah.
But I thought the perfect response, Nige, would have been me, but instead you went, Nige.
I think,
wait, what?
As we've all said, like that first opening, like 15, 20 minutes or whatever is... without doubt a 10 out of 10 that first part of the film, but yeah, I forgot how much I really enjoyed this film. Generally, I think like you forget how much heart it has, and like I forgot kind of, you know, the fact that they potentially had a miscarriage, and then also potentially have the fact that you know, it's dealing with like other issues, like the little boy's parents being divorced and stuff like that. You know, like these are all big life things that happen, and they're really not shying away from them in this film, but it still makes you laugh and smile and has like that ridiculousness in it despite all of that. But you know, it also always comes back to that heart at the beginning and the end, and you know, it kind of reminds you of the purpose. So the writing and the storytelling of this film is at the heart of this film, and I think it perfectly does it for what it is. You know, we discussed WALL-E on the podcast before, and I think overall I thought we all really enjoyed that. I would say that this film is potentially better than WALL-E because it has more to it. I can't remember what your scores were, but I think mine was... Yeah, anyway, I won't say it.
I can't remember what we gave it.
I don't want to look it up.
Yeah,
I don't want to kind of...
But, you know, these two films were around that time, and I remember a lot of people talking about Up and WALL-E in particular, because it was like, oh, wow, these two were really turning heads amongst adult audiences as well as younger audiences. And I'd be fascinated to, you know, show like my 9-year-old niece this and just see what she thinks. It's like, yeah. But... is there any criticism? Not really. I guess, like, if I was being cynical, like, you could probably say, are the dogs, you know, do you go too far with some of the comedy at times? Maybe that loses people. For me, it didn't. I think it needed that in amongst it. But it's not a 10 for me. But I would say it's pretty close. I think for this sort of film, you know, it's way up there with, like, some of the other great Pixar Disney films that we've listed. So I'm going to go for a 9 out of 10, I think.
Wow.
Good job, sir.
They both nodded for the podcast.
Wow. I was definitely wowing, don't you worry.
Who's next?
I'll go next if you want. Yeah, it's crazy with this movie. Like I'd forgotten so much about it, so I was kind of like, it's be interesting to watch. Very much enjoyed it. Like you say, you go back over the hour we've been talking about this movie, or however long Smith
cuts it down,
edits it down to 5 minutes. Yeah. The 5 minutes we've been talking about this movie. But yeah, it's we haven't criticised it. I don't even think once. Like everything about it just works. It's you know, like we said, it's a film aimed at a younger audience, but any decent storyteller will always appeal to that older audience. That's what filmmaking, anything is. It's you're supposed to entertain everyone. You should never kind of go, well, this is for that audience, no one else is allowed to watch it. It's like, well, no, that's not what filmmaking is. I love the, you know, the life lessons in this movie. I mean, that's a bit of a cliche, but you know, we see the kind of innocence, the spirit of the kids, the innocence, that, you know, that life gets in the way of dreams. That opening montage is amazing. The story is quite linear. It's quite basic, to be honest. It's just old man gets his house to this destination. There's no kind of B plot. We don't see... We've got the antagonist in Charles Muntz, but there's no real kind of villain, you know, real kind of B plot going on. It is just what it is. But the funny thing is, like, having watched it and enjoyed it, it's not like I'm in a rush to watch it again. And I think I could happily go another like 9-10 years without watching it. So I don't know what it is. I can't pinpoint it. I think we've done this before with movies where it's like, well, we haven't criticised this, but I don't feel like I can give it a 10. So yeah, it's a tricky one for me. It's like I really enjoyed it. There's nothing I can criticise about it, but it's just not a 10 for me. So yeah, like Smith, I'm probably going to go for a 9 out of 10.
Another big score. 9-9. 9-9 Nige. Where are we at?
9-9 Nige.
Nige. So yeah, like for me, I was looking forward to going and watching up because obviously it's been a long time, and like I normally do, I go back and check my IMDb and see, what did I give it back in the day? Wow. And I've also just done a quick check of like IMDb ratings for Pixar films, just a few of them, not all of them. And I would say it's quite surprising looking at some of the results, because you've got to be a really good film to get in like the top 250 on IMDb. I know there's this, I'm sure there's bots out there that can do something to the ratings and stuff like that, but I'd say generally it's a pretty good way of figuring out how good a film is. And Ratatouille, which was released around this period, is 195 out of the top 250. Toy Story 74, Toy Story 3 93. WALL-E's actually 58th, which is very, very high. Wow. And Up actually comes in at 107. So it's certainly one of the highest rated ones. And like we discussed at the beginning, that opening montage is absolutely fantastic. Yeah. It's amazing. The introduction
10 out of 10
of Carl is good. I really like the kind of batteries not included callback. I really love the way that the house floats off and the start. And then for me, I feel like the film kind of, I just don't feel as wrapped up with it as I expected to be, because I gave it a 9 the first time I watched this. Right. And watching it back, the kind of middle section, like the dogs are great, but their story and the connectivity between like Carl and Russell, like I find Russell quite annoying. There's something about it that doesn't quite engage with me. And whilst all the set pieces are really great and it's really creative and the script is fantastic, I just don't feel that connected to this film. And it's not like, this is a drastic, horrible problem. Like you said, there's great moments, the bits where they're knocking off the hats, like when we first meet not Charles Schultz, Charles Muntz. And the bits like with Kevin, I find Kevin a bit annoying. Like it's cute and it's interesting, but it's just a bit like and then there's so much going on, which is both great because it's really interesting, exciting and very clever, but it's almost to the point where there's so much going on, you're just like, stuff's just happening. I don't know how engaged I am with this. And I just didn't feel like the sense of tension. I felt the kind of dismissal of the bad guy a little bit almost anticlimactic, I guess. And then, for me, it just didn't really stick as well. But the underlying message is great. It's so smart. It looks amazing. The soundtrack is incredible. The beginning is unbelievable. And the ending leaves you with a smile on your face. So you can't be that like dismissive or
cynical,
disappointed in this film. So for me, it's still a really bloody good film. And I'm going to give it 8 out of 10. But it's not quite to the level that I expected going into this. And I would disagree with Smith. I actually slightly prefer WALL-E to this one. Although I've got a feeling I might have given 8s to both of them. But it's still a great film. Like, people will enjoy it. But I think there's a reason why Etok, you kind of said, I don't really remember what else happens, because whilst they're really smart bits, I think as an overall cohesive, not even cohesive, as a story that kind of fits together, I just think it's kind of missing something, and it's almost impossible to say what that is. But for me, it just didn't draw me in quite enough.
Enough to give an 8 though, which is obviously a very good score. 998, very high scores considering you kind of did have some
very high
criticism. Excuse me. And what did you guys think of Up? Email us on offradarpod@gmail.com. Tweet us at Offradar Podcast. Go to our YouTube channel, check us out, watch some shorts, like us, and let us know what film to watch next.
Like us, please like us.
Did you give it a thumbs down or a thumbs
going?
Yes,
going.
A thumbs yes. Thumbs
yes.
Right. I can't remember what they say. Thumbs. Yeah, you get
thumbs
the idea.
Into the sky. We need your help. We are looking to grow Off Radar and release more and more high quality content. Please give us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your pod. And why not share with your friends and loved ones?
Help me help you.